Namaskar and a vetri whale. Welcome to all of our viewers. We have today, in place of Abhijit Iyer-Mitra, a person who goes by the name of vetri whale. So let's give him a vetri whale, Veera whale. Welcome, vetri whale, whatever you are. Welcome to PGurus channel. Namaskar.
Vetri whale.
Vetri whale, Veera whale. All right. So who do you think is going to be in power in China? I have some interesting updates. I can share those. But first, I thought let's ask Mr. Abhijit, Mr. Know-it-all. You are the know-it-all. I am the fix-it-all.
It's very simple. This fellow is more powerful than Mao Zedong ever was. If you think he's going to change, no chance. So it is going to be she, more she. This is she's third term. He's going to get a fourth term, and he's going to get a fifth term, especially if he screws up real bad. He will crush down any opposition and ensure his. So, in fact, the worse his government gets, the higher the chances that he will get a fourth and fifth term.
All right. So from what I'm hearing, this is technicalities. The 19th session is over and done with. The 20th hasn't begun yet. There are a few days in between the two sessions. And there is a group of 47 elderly people, think of it as Margadarshak, who are now thinking and mulling it over. Now, we don't know how they are going to vote. Maybe they'll vote the way Xi Jinping wants them to vote. But these are the oldest living members of the CCP. We don't know how they'll vote, but that is where things stand right now. Now, let's jump into the questions. We have a lot of questions for you, Abhijit. So, get your thinking cap on, sir. Mandar Karnik, what are the alternatives to Petro Dollar, which is going down? Countrywise currency swaps or something else?
Finance question. You have to answer this.
It's like two blind men trying to feel their way around an elephant and then trying to come up with what they are seeing. Anyway, I have a little bit of idea about economics and petrodollar. Mandar, the challenge right now is that the United States is unable to, set its writ across everybody. One of the reasons is also that the US is kind of getting a little tired. So they don't want to police the oceans for everyone. They don't want to be there wherever there are skirmishes to try and help restore democracy. So all these things now, in fact, this is not the first president who has decided to do this. It's been in vogue probably in greater phases after the disaster that happened during Jimmy Carter's regime, 1980. The Iran revolution and so on and so forth. After that, there has been this thinking, no unnecessary wars, but Trump made it like a written thing, no unnecessary wars. And he was able to keep the US out of all wars during his 4-year period. Now, with Biden, what they have tried to do is, they have tried to fire at Russia from the shoulders of Ukraine. That is the long and short of it. I mean, NATO is who? NATO is US because they are the ones supplying 80% of the weaponry, maybe. But you get the idea, right? So that's where things stand right now. And if the United States is unable to fulfill the needs of natural gas for Europe in the near term, I'm afraid the decline of US as an empire is going to come down rapidly. I mean, this is like what Gandhiji said, nobody can talk to a hungry man except in terms of food. When the entire Europe is going to be freezing to death in December, January, if there is no heating gas, boy, that's going to be a big, big problem. That's my 2 cents.
And, I think he asked about the petrodollar, no?
Yeah. But petrodollar, natural gas, they more or less they're connected in the sense that energy in US is not able to mandate that. In terms of doing country-wise currency swaps, that's a difficult thing to do, Mandar, because say ruble, it was partially freely convertible. China's is fixed. In fact, I have seen multiple notes with the same serial number. So that means that whatever exchange rate they are saying they'll keep, it's not worth the paper it's written on. So how will you do currency swaps? I think it will still come back to either euro, which is a known devil, or it will be still in US dollars. The US dollar, I think, still has some distance to go. And you never know, Russia could collapse into multiple countries, in which case
Not
US will be required to, one possibility, to stabilize the region by, trying to create, they'll balkanize the place or whatever. So we have to wait and see how that plays out.
Russia's not breaking up anytime soon. Higher chances of Europe breaking up, though. I wonder if all of you saw this Financial Times piece today. Uh, Cold weather warning adds to Europe's gloom as it battles energy crisis. So it turns out they're going to have an extremely nasty winter. There's high pressure over Europe, which means no rain or anything like that. So it's going to be dry and it's going to be very, very, very cold. I did not expect this. In fact, last month, all my friends who were in Europe were just walking around with light sweaters. And at this time, the overcoats should have come out. And I thought it was going to be a mild winter. But turns out, no, it's going to be a nasty winter, which is more fun for the rest of us, of course.
Next question from Mandar Karnik for you, Abhijit. What is the reason our new education policy will fail or succeed?
The reason every policy in India fails or succeeds a lack of ways or means. You've brought about a focus on problem solving. Problem solving is a quality education method, not a quantity education method. How are you going to bring about quantity problem solving? Are you going to then readjust all the entrance exams to problem solving exams? You can't. See, you problem solving simply can't be done over bulk, because then you have to train the teachers. अरे तुम्हारे teacher ही problem solve नहीं कर सकते हैं. How are you going to teach the kids to problem solve? A problem solving society, a pre-industrial society is not a problem solving society. A factory floor worker society is not a problem solving society. A problem solving society happens when you hit about 15 $20,000 dollars per capita. You reach the higher end of the middle income group, and then you transition after all the industrial wealth has reached to become a problem solving society. And you can do that if you have a segregation and an elite which has that niche of problem solving education. So basically, this new education policy, it seemed they cut and pasted from all these developed countries. I can tell you, having worked in policy, this is what we also used to do. Why? Because the government, they didn't want a new policy. Not just this government, the previous government also, UPA government also, especially during the UPA government, they didn't actually want good policies. They wanted something to showcase to the rest of the world. So you used to cut and paste jargon from everybody else and put it in. And that is what this policy does. Best of luck to you, anyone who thinks this is going to succeed.
Simple Life wants to know, we know about Kashmiri dishes. Are there any Jammu dishes or Dogra dishes?
Rajma. Rajma is a Jammu dish, boss. It's not a Punjabi dish. Huh? So Jammu dishes, remember, Dogra is a kind of a form of Punjabi. And Jammu dishes specifically is Rajma. They have certain kinds of kebabs also, which are very specific to Jammu. I forget their names, but you get them only in Jammu. You do not get them in Kashmir. So certain kinds of kebabs and that Rajma. You know that entire Gujar Bakarwal belt in this thing which extends past, what range is it? I forget now. Their food customs are purely Rajma Chawal. They do not eat this Kashmiri Wazwan food. And there, in that Rajma Chawal belt, Jammu has the highest. Jammu Rajma is meant to be the best anyway. So that's very much the Kashmiri Rajma preparation as you know it is actually a Jammu dish. It's not a Kashmiri dish.
Simple Life again. How brutal would Rome have been if Julius Caesar was not assassinated?
No less or no more. Brutality is a social phenomenon, boss. And Julius Caesar was very brutal himself. Are you forgetting what he did to Gaul? Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul, as a percentage, cost more lives than any Mongol campaign ever did. He killed off a quarter of the population of Gaul. Look at the siege of Avaricum in what was it, 43 BC or 46 BC? The entire city slaughtered. Vercingetorix was taken in chains to Rome. He was tortured and then finally he was sacrificed to the gods. Oh, they did have human sacrifices, by the way. He was sacrificed to the gods.
Sachin wants to know, you were among the ones critical of government when it did not let Pfizer vaccine in. Now there are studies showing its adverse effects. So government was correct in its decision to go atmanirbhar, or was it just a fluke?
When did I say I didn't want Pfizer in?
Maybe on a different hangout.
No, I doubt that very much.
Hmm.
My position always was let all vaccines come in. My criticism of Pfizer was that they employed all kinds of shady characters and were running a campaign without giving us the guarantees that we required. Okay. So I was not critical of the government for not letting Pfizer in, boss. It was a very nuanced argument out there. So it is what it is. And adverse effects, I don't know about. I haven't been following the this thing story. But I was very clear I was not going to get Pfizer. Huh? I was very clear I was only going to get Covaxin or Covishield.
Sachin wants to know, question to both. What are your views on BRICS currency?
Hmm.
There you go.
There.
Can you read that? That's your tweet.
Yes, that is. So glad India never got Pfizer vaccines. Pure unadulterated shit. Made not to cure COVID, but a never ending gravy train of booster shots and endless follow ups. At some point, we have to thank our leadership that chose the two best vaccines on the market. I stand by that. So I was not critical of the government for not bringing in Pfizer, boss.
Okay,
Though
Sachin has another.
I still do believe you should let in all medicines to come in and allow people to take their own risks.
Sachin, question to both. What are your views on the BRICS currency? There are reports of UAE and Saudi joining BRICS. Also, East is buying gold in large quantities. How effective will be a gold-backed BRICS currency?
Mm, not going to take off. Brazil is going to have, first of all, do you understand the kind of fiscal meltdown that's happened in South Africa? Do you understand how on edge the Russian economy and Chinese economies are? Effectively, India is the only one that has a relatively better fiscal policy than these other four countries. Why should we have a common currency with all these clowns? No chance. Because then we expose our better fiscal policies to their worse fiscal policies. That's the last thing we need. Okay? Then there are reports of UAE and Saudi joining BRICS. I will believe it when it happens. There are lots of things that happen in the shadows which I have no idea about. East has always bought gold in large quantities. That's not a badge of pride. It usually means that you have very little faith in your fiscal instruments. In fact, the worse the state in terms of investments, such as Kerala, for example, if you go to Kerala, even today, all the hoardings are for houses and gold. Joy Alukka, something else Alukka. Alukka broke into what, 40, 50 different Alukkas, no? So every
Yeah.
hoarding, second hoarding is for a different Alukka. Joy Alukka, Jesus Alukka, Mary Alukka, the Saint Stephen Alukka, Saint George Alukka, Saint Theodosius Alukka, Saint Ignatius Alukka, God knows what Alukka, God knows what not Alukka, etc., etc. So remember, this is a thing. Buying gold is not a good thing. Buying gold is a fundamental lack of trust in your financial instruments. Number one. How effective will a gold back? First of all, a BRICS currency is going to be shit. The Indian currency at the moment is much better protected against financial shocks than the B, the R, the C, or and especially the S. R and S are the most volatile at the moment. C is a financial disaster waiting to happen. B is somewhat more stable. We don't know. I suspect Lula is going to win the runoff election. And then let's see what Lula does to the currency out there.
Lula in
So it
Brazil?
doesn't. So it doesn't matter if gold is the backbone of it. Gold may be the backbone of your currency. The problem is its strength or its weakness depends on your fiscal policies. I mean, you have irresponsible fiscal policies, no amount of gold can save your currency.
Yeah, Sachin, I don't have anything more to add at this point on the currency. See, you have to remember that 60% of all dollar denominated currency is outside of the United States. In other words, the world is using dollar as something that both sides trust. And whether US is going to become weaker or not, the dollar is still respected. It still has a heft because US financial system is the most robust. Maybe the British is close to that, but US is the most robust. So I think this may be too early to answer. And I also think, and I agree with Abhijit, that the R and the C have huge economic problems, and I don't think they're going to be able to come out of those things in one piece. This is my take. Vamsi wants to know what's your take on Meta Wire episode? What are your sources saying?
My everything that I'm seeing is that it is a case of the wire being taken for a ride. Okay. So the wire has definitely been taken for a ride. We don't know by who. I suspect this is a Harvard professorship redux case, because even the person who they who set the ball rolling, this guy called cringe archivist or cringe activist, he also seems to have turned against them. And alt news has thrown them under the bucket, and news laundry has also thrown them under the truck. There was a lot that didn't add up in that story, so I don't know what the hell was happening out there. At the same time, remember, a lot of people who were doing the defense of Meta against Wire, they're all on the Facebook gravy train. Remember that. Never forget that. A lot of the tech journalists being quoted are all on the bloody Facebook Meta big tech gravy train number one. Remember, I had filed a case against Facebook just before the 2019 elections for election interference, which Facebook did, in fact, do. They did significant election interference. And remember, Facebook is fundamentally a Liberando company. I think for the BJP, there were lots of lessons to be learned. They should have used this to crack down on Facebook. They did not, just like they did not in 2019. Mark my words, Facebook at one point will be weaponized against India and Indian elections. At that point, you could have used this entire wire story to your own advantage. Even though the story was against you, you could have used it to your advantage legally. Used it as a fishing to go after all their documentation and things like that. You did not. And this is sometimes what I worry about the right wing. They lose every opportunity to lose an opportunity.
Soham Majumdar wants to know, sir, why the global capitalism has failed to reform itself after the 2000 crisis until today?
Because it's crooked and corrupt. That entire 2008 crisis was what? It was the subprime mortgage crisis, right?
Right.
Now, what was the thing about subprime mortgages? It started off with the Clinton government saying that loans didn't have to be given based on what Abhijit Mitra was earning. You could get somebody to write that under the correct circumstances, Abhijit Mitra can earn so much, and based on that, you will get a loan. And then it wasn't the people who had taken the loans that got forgiven, it was the banks that gave all the bad loans that got bailed out of it on taxpayer money that the people who had taken the loans had paid. Okay, every system sets the building blocks of its own ruin by itself. including democracies. Global capitalism is at that stage where it is setting the building blocks of its own ruin, be it through failing in reforming the system, be it in terms of promoting this inclusivity and socialism and all that. Can you imagine capitalism promoting socialism? And they're doing it for their own selfish interests because they do not want change to come in. You saw what Nokia revolutionized the mobile phone market, and then Nokia collapsed as quickly as it rose. Apple doesn't want that to happen. Google does not want that to happen. Okay, so they come up with these systems of kind of social control to prevent them from going down. And in protecting themselves, they essentially destroy society, and ultimately they also go. So this is one of those classic reasons it's such a corrupt system. It is not going to reform itself. In fact, you are going to go into recession now. The winter is going to be a nasty one, and the recession is going to be a really nasty recession. I doubt if we're going to go into depression. We might go into depression. I hope not. But even after this recession, you will get squat in terms of financial reforms. Do you remember during COVID, everybody was saying we need to diversify supply chains from China and this and that? Kisne diversify kiya? Kisi ne diversify kiya? China is still sitting on all the global production. So
True.
it's lots of things. It is myopia, it is corruption, and corruption plus myopia leads to toxic results.
Next question, please. Vamsi wants to know what is the update on Russia-Ukraine war? What are your sources saying? Why don't you go first, Abhijit?
रशिया की मैया डैश 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 हो रही है.
So basically, what you're saying is Putin is being given his rather wide bottom in his hand.
Yes. What has
Okay.
happened is that Kerch bridge blow up, it worked. We
Yes.
weren't seeing significant advances in the south, but blowing up that bridge has. See, it isn't just the blowing up of the bridge, it's that security mentality that has changed in the Russians, that you're looking at 12 to 14-hour long waits to cross that bridge because they're doing intensive security on that bridge now. So arms and ammunition aren't, and fuel especially, are not moving like the way they should to the front lines. And those large formations and stocks that we've seen in Novorossiysk, they are not being transported across the bridge to Ukraine. So we're sitting there looking and going, what the hell is happening out here? And the Russians, so if you look at the Kerch bridge bombing as an act of desperation, you should also look at the kamikaze drone attacks as an act of desperation. Desperation that Russia is running out of missiles. Desperation that Russia needs to buy stuff from Iran of all places, because clearly it has a capability gap. Uh, the fact that the targeting is quite bizarre, and that drones can be, especially the Shahed drones, can be shot down quite easily. The targeting isn't making sense. That first day of bombing of Kiev, first and second day, which was energy and infrastructure, made eminent sense. The current targeting, we are just not able to understand what the hell are they focusing on. And in the last 4 or 5 days, we've seen Russia lose a lot of land in the south. A lot. They hadn't lost land in the south. They had lost land in the north, and the northeast salient. Suddenly they're losing land in the south, and we don't know what the hell is happening. I mean, what the hell are the Russians thinking? Kisi ko pata nahi. I think Putin basically satiya gaya hai.
Yes, the indications are that Ukraine is continuing to gain the upper hand. They'll figure out how to stop these drones.
No, no, no. I,
And
I won't go that far. I won't go that far. I won't say they're gaining the upper hand. Remember, all the fighting is happening in Ukraine, right? 20% of their country is under Russian occupation at the moment. I won't say they're gaining the upper hand. Russia still has, remember, we discussed this. The warmer and milder the winter, the less the chances of Russian nuclear usage. the greater the chances of Russian nuclear usage, because it would have been bad for Russia. The worse the winter, the better it is for Russia. अभी winter शुरू नहीं हुआ है, winter is coming है ना, that famous line from Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Abhi winter is coming, and think of Russia as the ice walkers.
Popat Muhammad wants to know how to industrialize India, what policies we need.
Popat, not happening in my lifetime, possibly not happening in your lifetime either. What you need is judicial reforms, you need police reforms. You can't have police just going around beating up anyone they want, shutting down any shop. Every bloody police is a thulla who starts extorting money on the roadside. You can't have all this crap. There are easy things to do, you won't even do that. Put body cams on police, you won't do that. Separate investigation from enforcement, you won't do that. Regulate the judiciary, you won't do that. Your regulatory mechanisms where all your laws are simplified and you avoid conflicting laws, you don't want to do that. If anybody complains about it, they are talking shit, they don't know. Modi knows everything. Congratulations to you. You need a simple linguistic policy. Say you don't teach it as English or whatever, teach it as business English. Okay, simple things like that, you don't even do that, even though all your business documents are made in English. You don't want to sort out anything. See, even for a very simple thing like a midday meal scheme, do you remember what happened with the question of eggs? We must provide eggs. Nobody wanted to talk about the fact that kids require protein. The method of the delivery is irrelevant. It is the protein and calcium and vitamin consumption that is important. Could you come up with vitamin pills, vitamin and protein pills, whey extracted protein, which would have been completely vegetarian, and given it to them? You could have. Did you do it? No. You could have turned midday meal scheme into a sort of industry where each district would have had its own pre-packaged distribution scheme using that DRDO technology or whatever, and you could have started value adding. You did not do that. You left the procurement to the local agency, and the midday meal, the quality of the midday meal varies in every different place. There are so many things you can do, boss. None of them are being done. Instead, what we hear is slogans and a whole load. There are good policies happening. I'm not saying there are not good policies happening, but is it industrializing India? No.
Soham Majumdar again, by increasing fiscal stimulus, which you have mentioned on occasions, has China managed to escape itself completely from the negative impacts of crises like USSR in 1930 after the Great Depression?
Crisis like the USSR.
I think he means USA. The New Deal,
Hmm.
Social Security,
Well,
that
the
frankly, they
New
are.
Deal wasn't the great success that it's counted to be. Uh, that said, you do need fiscal stimulus where the economy isn't doing well. I think we have generally managed to isolate ourselves from the worst, insulate ourselves from the worst. Like I said in that answer to the BRICS question, our economic policies may not be the bestest in the world, but in many ways they have insulated us from a lot of crap that happens in, say, with profligate spending like China or corrupt capitalism like America. Okay, number one. Number two, when COVID was at its worst, they did inject fiscal stimulus. Could it have been more? Sure, it could have. But let us be grateful for what came, and that did prevent the worst from happening, which is why even now, even with all the revised estimates, we're still performing pretty damn well in terms of growth. Of course, I have huge questions about that growth itself, like we've discussed, because a lot of the FDI coming in is coming in from highly dubious sources, and we don't know what it's going into, but still. And has China managed to escape? No, China has not managed to escape. In fact, China is only postponing the day. At some point, uh, things are going to talk. You have a 3 trillion, almost $4 trillion reserve now. 1 trillion to तुम्हारा ये भांडा में गया, तुम्हारा train system भांडा में गया. Your infrastructure is about 1.5 to 2 trillion. वो तुम्हारा भांडा में गया. Everybody knows that infrastructure is a complete failure in China. Everybody knows the train system is a failure in China. Then you have the currency manipulation happening in China. You you wait and watch. See, on one hand, dictatorships can prevent the obvious from happening. They can't prevent. They can postpone the obvious from happening. They can't prevent the obvious from happening.
Malyaban Bhattacharya, why haven't the Polish reconciled?
Good question. I suspect it has a lot to do with how their interests were aligned with the EU. When they joined the European Union, they were a tiny economy, they were an irrelevant economy. They also had very significant uh, uh, how should we say this? A very significant, I won't say historical baggage, but they had a surge of nationalism. Let's put it this way, they had a surge of nationalism. So it was nationalism plus the fact that for all your talk, the historical baggage, let's call it this historical memory. Okay, and it's not the historical memory of oppression by the Russians, it was this historical memory of the great Polish Empire and the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth that saved Vienna from the Turks, that went and conquered Moscow, that was the most powerful bulwark in Europe for a very long time. They had this kind of inherited memory. So what happens is when this suddenly free country that hasn't known freedom in, well, here's the thing. If you look at the partitions of Poland, really for the last 300 years, it was only between the two world wars that they were actually free, right? So they join Europe. They're a tiny country with an oversized opinion of themselves. And they realize one of the ways in which you can get to be to punch above your weight in the EU is to make yourself useful in NATO. So what they do is they play the America card. They keep talking about how Russia, 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 Russia. They essentially create a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like if you think your dog is going to, if you think your dog, you get a dog, and you think your dog is going to be this lovely little cuddle bug, you'll keep kissing it and playing with it and things like that, and it will end up turning out to be a cuddle bug. I can personally tell you this of how my mother has completely destroyed dogs. Every dog that comes, she doesn't think of it as a dog. She thinks of it as a baby. She keeps giving it kitchi, 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 kitchi. We have a German Shepherd Labrador mix, and there isn't an ounce of German Shepherd in that child. Why? Because he's used to being kissed every morning, kissed every evening. So he thinks everybody who's coming into the house is only there to kiss him. Okay. So German Shepherd gaya bhand mein thanks to my mother. Now, if you think that your dog is going to be a nasty man eater, man killing dog, you will start beating it, giving it electric shocks, mistreating it, abusing it every day, and it will turn into the creature you want it to be. Poland had to do that to get salience in NATO, claiming to be a frontline state. And this, when combined with nationalism, led to this whole cycle, toxic cycle, where it started getting more EU loans by participating in more American regime change ventures abroad and things like that. Remember, they quite enthusiastically supported the invasion of Iraq. Hmm. The same way that they are now opposing the invasion of Ukraine. So there were hard geopolitical reasons combined with sort of very dangerous historical baggage. In a way, you could say Poland was stuck in French pre-World War II revanchism, but that revanchism was driven by genuine political interest in punching above its weight in the EU. And once they got whatever they wanted from the EU, they said, middle finger to the EU, screw you. We'll do what we want, social conservatism and all of that. So that is where Poland, I would say Poland did not reconcile. I think the interests of Poland at that point of time lay in not reconciling. And today that is, it's become sort of learnt behavior, rehearsed learnt behavior.
Next question from Maliban again. Why haven't the Japanese and Chinese reconciled with each other till date? Japan is no more the Japan of World War II.
Well, you know what? A lot of it has to do with China basically pushing the agenda. You could say the Taiwanese haven't reconciled, but they have reconciled. The Koreans have mostly reconciled. It's brought up. See, it becomes an issue when it needs to become an issue. Every time there's some political, it's like Indians. Have India and Britain reconciled? For most part, I would say yes, except when there is an election election coming up, and Congress party keeps losing election. Then out of nowhere, Shashi Tharoor will write a book on British India and the British Indian Holocaust and all of that. Except when Maharani Elizabeth dies and humko Kohinoor lauta do, humko Kohinoor lauta do. Other than that, you're mostly reconciled, no? Do you go around stomping on the British flag anymore? Do you burn the British flag anymore? Do you go, when you go to England, when you land up in Heathrow, do you start urinating and defecating on Heathrow just to show your contempt for the country? No. Do the Brits come here and do Bada Sahib nonsense? No. Would you say we've reconciled? Yes. It's the same with the Japanese and the Chinese, then same with the Japanese and Koreans. It becomes an issue only when it needs to become an issue.
Sandman 1306. Why did Wellesley believe that winning the Battle of Asaye was his greatest achievement?
Did he? I have not seen any particularly. I've read a lot of things which claim that he said it was his greatest achievement, but I have not read an original quote from him saying that he thought it was his greatest achievement.
Kanda Batata wants to know, should India have a nationwide 2611 emergency service, fire, police, ambulance like 911 in the US? Question to Sri, can you have a meetup so people like me can meet you in the Bay Area?
No, you shouldn't have any meetup in the Bay Area. See, I've told you before, the Bay Area resembles a very evil part of the human anatomy, a very smelly part of the human anatomy. So, Bay Area, first of all, no Indian should live in the Bay Area. And if you live in the Bay Area, please don't meet up. But should we have a nationwide emergency? Of course, we should. That is optimal, no? Every country should have a single dial emergency number. Now, what do you mean 2611? You mean 911? No.
Yeah, it should be 911. Yeah. Well,
It's you're confusing Twin Tower attacks and Bombay attacks. But 911 is just, and we don't use. So anyway, but we do need something like that. Yeah, I thought they introduced it. No,
I think they do. Isn't there like not 100 but 300 or something like that? There is
I
a
think there
non-essential
is.
thing, 300 or something like that. I think so.
Okay,
I could be wrong. Okay, the answer to your
I
question,
think so too.
Kanda, is that don't listen to Abhijit when it comes to matters of the Bay Area. He has a I mean, he has bias on many things, but his ultimate bias is against the successful Bay Areites such as myself. And he comes out in the form of saying all sorts of phony baloney things. And don't take his word for it. Yes, we shall have a meetup, and I will reach out to you, Kanda. I mean, I'll just put a offer saying that we are meeting at this particular place, and whoever wants to come, we can have a long chat. We used to do this thing before COVID hit as part of Virat Hindustan Sangam. But suddenly, what has happened is many people have kind of drifted away, and the circle of friends that we used to have, that's become even more widespread in the Bay Area. So it has not happened in the recent past, but I will try to revive that, and sure, we can have meet up. Next question, please. Again, don't listen to Abhijit when he talks about Bay Area.
See, I will give you evidence. I am not going to talk. I will give you evidence. So I'm sharing my screen. Present. Okay. Share screen. Okay. And share. Okay. Can you see my screen? Now see, can you see this? This is what Bay Area looks like, right? And you see this channel coming out. I just want you to see the human digestive system. And you see, this is what it looks like. You twist it 90 degrees and you see that little, what is that thing called? The anal canal. And you see where the
Right.
anal canal is. The anal canal and the big intestine, and the anal canal called San Francisco and the big intestine. Thank you very much. I rest my case. Quod erat demonstrandum. This is scientific proof that nobody can question. Thank
I
you very
thought
much.
I thought you didn't know a lot of things about Bay Area. Now I'm realizing you also don't know how to compare two figures. That looks nothing like what you talked about
See,
in the
this is your typical.
intestine.
You are giving woke. You have been caught out. You have been caught out, and as living in a horrible area, I strongly condemn Bay Area. I strongly condemn the state of California. I strongly condemn Indians living in Bay Area, and especially the ones who vote Democrat.
Oh, by the way, you've been doing these kinds of rants on Iyengars also. They are coming up with a solid defense. And in fact, that defense might turn into offense. So watch out. One of these days, I'm going to have them come and have a go at you, my friend.
See, how can an Iyengar take me on? How can an Iyengar take me on? By very definition, a person who believes in Advaita, Tattvam Asi. Therefore, Dvaitists are gods. Sorry, Advaitis are gods.
Confused
Advaitist,
man. He's a confused man.
no, no, no. See, Advaitists are gods because Tattvamasi. Dvaitists are not gods. How can a mere mortal take on a god? Every Advaitin is a living, walking Vishnu on earth. Is a living, walking. You remember that song in Sikandar-e-Azam, जहाँ हर हर बालक एक मोहन और हर हर बाला एक राधा. That is true of every Advaitin on earth. Every Advaitin walking is Mahavishnu. Every Advaitin lady is Durga, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Sakshat. But every Iyengar on earth is Hidimba and Mahishasura.
Atrocious, atrocious,
It's the
outrageous.
truth. It is the truth. It is divine truth. Why deny these honest truths?
Chalo yaar, let's answer our friends' questions. They've actually paid for it. Many of them have. Kanda Batata, do you think that the US needs to give up on two-party system and become a multi-party state like India? Question to both of you.
Hmm. See, there's no easy answer to this, Kanda. I'll tell you why. Multi-party system has its pros and cons, and two-party system has its pros and cons. The issue of a two-party system is when you say two-party, remember there is no forcible two-party. Just like in the UK, there is no forcible two-party. In the UK, there is the Lib Dems. In America, you've got the Libertarian Party of America, you've got the Communist Party of America, and all of that. It's just that nobody ends up voting for them.
Green Party
Okay?
also.
Green Party also, but nobody votes for them. So, what you are looking at is a polarization of opinion as opposed to a multiplicity of opinion, of electoral opinion in India, where because of its size, there is greater nuance. And in America and Britain, people for some reason only seem to think in black and whites. Now, if it were a forced two-party system, we could consider that US needs to give up. But here, I think the question itself is wrong because it is not a forced two-party system. No, why can't they? And in fact, I think which one is it? There is a this thing. the initial party was not. I think it wasn't
Whigs. It was
always
called Whig.
Republicans and
Whig.
Democrats. No,
Whig.
it was called the
Yeah.
Whigs. Yeah,
Yeah.
they used to be the Whig party, and then the other party came about much later.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So you
Yes.
have had this even in America where the party changed. Lib Dems were very popular at one point of time. Now they are nowhere in the equation. It's only Labour or Tory for a long time now. Who was the last Lib Dem prime minister? There was it Asquith?
It's a long time
Asquith
ago.
PM of
Yeah.
UK. I think it was Asquith PM of UK. I think he was the last. I think he was. No, he's related to Helena Bonham Carter. Hmm. He was the leader of the Liberal Party. And he was prime minister from when? Um
18th, 19th
from
century.
1908 to 1916. He was there for almost 8 years. Almost, yeah, full 8 years he was. 1908 to 1916. So I think, so it's not forced. It's not forced. It shows a consolidation of people's minds and a kind of need to replicate. There are ways of forcing a multiplicity of opinion, like in Israel or Italy or Germany, where they give proportional representation and things like that, which could also help. Should it go that way? Well, look, what do you want? The only thing that a multi-party system, well, again, the problem here is in your question, because you're talking about, we're pretending that it's a forced system, which it is not. Uh, Israel very specifically wanted, Italy very specifically wanted that no party should ever come to power in a singularity by itself. Because they were scared of coups and one given its past, the other given the fact that they had endured the tyranny of singularity in Europe, kind of thing. But what exactly will it achieve in the system? Tell me that.
No, Abhijit is right, Kanda. It is just, these are people who make up the party. By the way, everybody was pleasantly surprised that Ro Khanna sponsored the 1971 Bangladesh genocide resolution. He's a co-sponsor of that. Steve Shabo wrote it, and he's a co-sponsor. And nobody thought that Ro Khanna, who was supposed to be very, very progressive, would sign on to that, and he did. So why? Most people say that it's because he's concerned that his constituency might slip out of his hand. It's 28% Indian Hindu American Fremont constituency. So maybe he's thinking that, well, if I don't do this, then I don't get any brownie points. Maybe my, becoming a congressman again could be a problem. So what I'm trying to say is the US, most politicians are independent minded, and they also change their mind sometimes from one position to another position. It happens, and I don't think adding more parties is going to change it. You're going to see a more balanced, more to the center America, I think, in maybe another generation, because we have a lot of oldie fuddy-duddies now. Many of them are in their 80s and they don't want to let go. I don't know why. The only reason I can think of is they're all so corrupt that if they let go, they're afraid that they may have to face jail time, just, for the lack of a better imagination. So that's where things stand. Abhishek, sir,
So
what
I
the hell?
just want to add, that I have been a victim of the International Iyengar conspiracy. You see, this Sri Iyer, he is actually a crypto Iyengar. He baited this evil Iyengar called Vineet Vijay Raghavan to call me on his show. So we've had a very serious Iyer versus Iyengar. I think that podcast will be coming up on Vineet's show soon. But he is one of the agents of the International Iyengar conspiracy. And he and I had a very long chat on this, and it will be put up shortly on. Maybe you can link it on PGurus when it comes up. Me and Vineet talking about complex theological arguments. But I want to say, Iyers of the world unite. Do not trust this fraud Sri Iyer. He's been sold out to the Iyengar, International Iyengarist conspiracy.
Oh, along the same lines, Maya Jagannathan wants to know, why don't you bring in Dushyant Sridhar to counter Abhijit? Listen, Maya, this is just bantering, just fun. Okay,
No,
Iyer-Mitra
no,
doesn't
no,
mean
no,
what he
no,
says,
no, no, no.
even though
This
he
is very
says.
serious. This is very serious. The international Iyengarist conspiracy is the next attempt to take over world domination. It is the
Um,
next Nazi party of India.
will you let me
World
finish my
global
sentence?
Nazi party. It is very scary. Iyengarism is one of the biggest threats to world peace. Putin is an Iyengar. You know that? The invasion of Ukraine is an Iyengarist conspiracy.
Listen,
You
I
see,
wanted to
if you
finish that
see,
answer to
if you
Maya.
see, when Putin is smiling like this, when he shakes people's hands, you'll see the Trishul appear on his forehead. You just go check; it wrinkles up. So
Your
it's not actually
imagination
like
has
that.
gone wild today. No, Maya finishing that answer. Dushyant is going to be a regular on PGurus channel. What we are looking for is to give him some really good questions that we face in our day-to-day lives. When our kids ask these tough questions, why do we have, a million gods? What does it mean? I don't understand. It is so confusing. Why have three names for the same Shakti like Lakshmi, Durga, and Saraswati? So all these tough questions that he is going to field. So if you have any question for Dushyant, put hashtag ask Dushyant in this conversation, and I'll be sure to ask him. We are compiling a set of questions for Dushyant, and we are going to do it in a format that you will like in the future, very, very near future. The ball's in my court. Basically, I'm compiling the questions. So you would be doing me a huge favor. All those parents who are trying to bring up your children, and when the children are asking tough questions, send them our way. Dushyant is our savior. Next question, please. Abhishek, sir, what the hell is Judeo Christian values? Is in Jesus Joshua ben Yusuf a real or a mythical creature?
Look, a Judeo Christian value is essentially a concocted system which people claim. First, it was Christian values. After the Holocaust, it became Judeo Christian values because they didn't want to leave out. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is why is it not Judeo Christo Islamic values? Because Islam takes its root fundamentally from the same Judeo Christian tradition, right? So, it is basically a concoction. Like most identities are concoctions where you pick and choose certain things that are convenient to you and claim that it is a Judeo Christian tradition, that somehow reason is a Judeo Christian tradition, freedom of speech is a Judeo Christian tradition, and you pick selectively to back it up. Now, is Jesus real or mythical? I don't believe that a real Jesus existed. A lot of people do. This is a question of belief and faith. A lot of people, for example, don't believe that Rama and Krishna existed. A lot of people do. I fundamentally believe, and I'm openly claim that this is bias of me being a Hindu, that Rama and Krishna did exist. I personally believe that Jesus did not exist for one very simple reason, that because I'm not a Christian, my faith doesn't depend on it. So mera ghar, I'm always going to be much more partial to my stories than somebody else's stories. So what does it change for you, Abhishek, if Jesus existed or not? Does it change anything for you? So why is it so important to you? Hmm. So it's kind of irrelevant. But on a more serious question, to go back to the and now no more banter, serious talk on Iyengarism. I want all of you to check out this thing called the Boltzmann brain paradox. So when we're talking about Iyengarism, remember, are we talking about Visishta Dvaita, or Dvaita? And the thing is, if you're looking at Dvaita, I all want you to go check out. Just go to YouTube and see if you get anything about it. It's called the Boltzmann brain paradox. It's one of the most serious scientific explanations of the Dvaita point of view. I think, I mean, this is again, this is like we're answering, and the reason that I'm answering this when this question came up is it's because, like the way Judeo Christians will pick whatever is convenient and portrays them in flattering light to them, you can claim that this is Dvaita. But for me, I think this Boltzmann brain paradox kind of sums up the Dvaita POV generally. So go check it out on a more serious note.
Um, Reek Jyoti Hati wants to know: will US midterm result affect Ukraine policy?
No, it won't.
Abhishek, it'll be more in internal policies that will get affected rather than the external
They'll
policy.
because remember everybody in America is making money out of Ukraine. It's not really going to change anything
Not
out there.
me. I'm hosting a show with you.
No, no, you will also make money out of it. You are hosting the show with me because Ukraine war is also happening. No, so people are asking questions. So you are making money out of Ukraine.
So no, somebody just hauled me over the coal saying that I have become a mouthpiece of Subramaniam Swami, that Ukraine is being hauled over the coals, is what he said. Listen, guys, I've been saying this for a long, long time, and my data is coming from data. I have people in Ukraine. I have people who have worked with who are now probably either escaped or prisoners in the city of Mariupol. Very, very sad. Okay, it's anyway. Colleagues being jailed is not a good feeling. Next question, please.
Colleagues
Abhishek
being
wants to
jailed.
know. Yeah,
Who's being jailed?
we don't know how many prisoners are there in Mariupol right now.
There are no prisoners in Mariupol. That city was overwhelmingly Russian and supported Russia. The only people who were holding people prisoners were these bloody Azov battalion Nazis, Ukro
No,
Nazis.
no, 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 no.
Yes,
ना
yes,
बेटा
yes.
नहीं 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 नहीं
यस
नहीं
यस
नहीं
यस अरे कुछ नहीं है सब ईस्ट में रशिया है मैं मैरियोपोल जा चुका हूँ आप मैरियोपोल जा चुके हैं
नहीं मैं यहाँ बैठकर
हाँ
ही काम
हम
करवाया था उनसे
हाँ हम क्राइमिया जा चुका है जब हम बच्चा है हम मारियोपोल जा चुका है जब हम बुढ़ा है कुछ नहीं हो रहा है उधर
एक all right, let's get back to this question here, Abhishek. I'm sorry, Abhijit. Question to both of you: the whole world is facing recession. Why India is only shining spot in the world economy?
For a good reason that we've generally taken quite decent policy approaches. We're still growing, even if it's a natural growth, it's still growing. We've insulated ourselves very well. One of the, I won't say glories, but one of the good things about insulating yourself from the global economy is that you're less affected by global currents. When you aren't an export based economy, you don't get hit by global recession. Okay. There are, of course, all the downfalls that we've spoken about before. But when you have generally insulated yourself from the globe, you tend not to go by their boom bust cycles. You have your own boom bust cycles. And thankfully, since 1991, I don't think we've really had a bust cycle ever. So it's been fairly steady, which is something you have to give successive governments since 1991 credit for, without exception, BJP or UPA.
Next question is no, it's okay. I'll pass. I don't have anything to add on that. Let's go to the next question. Sandman 1306: is it possible that some people from collapsed IBC could also have migrated towards Mesopotamia like the wealthy families? Indus
Mm,
Valley civilization? Is
do
that
you
what is
know?
IBC?
Do you know? Do you know what is very curious? I still remember when I was growing up in the 80s. All the books in the 70s and 80s used to say that Mesopotamia was founded by people from India. Do you know that? You won't find it in any book on Mesopotamia anymore. But I suspect even the 50s and 60s, that was the predominant theory because Sumer in the local linguistic isolate meant the black headed people. And they believed it was settlers from India who first came and settled down Sumer. Number one. Number two, bring up the question again, please.
Yeah. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
IVC collapse migrated towards towards Mesopotamia. We know one thing that happened during the IVC collapse, which was largely driven by the drying up of the Saraswati, is that the Persians were almost certainly byproducts of that drying up. Because the oldest part of the Zendavasta is the Gathas, and the Gathas are very clear that the Hapta Hindu, the Sapta Sindhu, was struck by fire. drying basically. And then the people of the Gathas, they moved westwards. They themselves say it. Now, did some of them move further westwards? Quite possibly, yes. The thing is, we have yet to see any proof of it epigraphically or allegorically or theologically or anything like that. With the Persians, we know for a fact that this is what they say. It is their own words talking. Okay? But with this, there is no proof. Is it possible? Sure. Uh, but do we have any proof of it? No.
Okay, we just finished up 1 hour, and thank you very much, Abhijit. We have a few pending questions from 3 or 4 episodes, Abhijit, and we'll work out with you on when it would be a good time. We'll send you the updated. Even today, we missed a few questions. Viewers, we try to answer all questions. That you are paying for some of the questions just gives you a slightly ahead slot in the queue, but we do answer all questions, including the ones that are free. Don't worry about it. It is just the fact that Abhijit has to give the gift of his time, and he is very, very busy. He reads, he works, he travels, he eats, he likes to share his thoughts on many platforms. So this is serious. So whenever he has time, we do go in and record these things, and we will be back before next week. We'll catch up with all the arrears. Thank you very much, Abhijit. Well, well, vetri well.
Veil, veil, vetri, veil.
And vetri well, veera well. Winter is coming.
That's it.